Hello and thanks for joining School of the American Rifle. This is part 4 of our Ruger Secret Shopper series. It did take us a long time because we had some projects going on and we had to get some parts in, and then we had to find time to do all the work. So I'll go over the work with one of the guns and a quick summary, but these are the guns. We had the low receivers laser engraved with our logo. And then we have certificates made up. These are all spoken for. This certificate's going to get a black seal, basically 1 of 7 because there were 7 total. It'll list the serial number. We're going to go over the things that we found in previous videos. This is a summary. Those things will be linked in the description below. These are all the problems. I'll put this here so we can pause the video and you can see it, but those are, again, are listed in the previous video. We're going to go over all the things that we had to do. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these guns. And it's not the same for all of them. Like I said, you'll have to go to the description below. But all of them required new buffers and springs. These guns had huge gas ports. And they were under buffered. And the spring was going to solid height. So we put a Springco blue and a H2 buffer. These were donated by Sons of Liberty Gunworks. The buffers were, the springs were donated by Springco. I had to retime the receiver extension or buffer tube so it didn't cause the carry key to get too close to the lower, and so the buffer retainer was properly retained by the buffer tube or receiver extension. We properly restaked everything in 2 places. The front and rear takedown pins had an excessive amount of spring tension. So what we did, and I'll show you here in a minute, is we had to modify the springs. And sometimes that happens because either the pins are rough or the springs are too stiff. So we had to shorten the springs. That's one of the only springs in the gun that I would recommend that you tweak. The hammers were of the notch design. So Sons of Liberty donated their, I believe it's either MP3 or some of their coating fire control groups. It did need a new trigger or disconnect, but these came with new hammer and trigger pins, new hammer, new disconnect, new trigger, so we put all those in. And of course, Springco donated a new hammer spring because the hammer springs that were in these were also on the weak side due to their bend in them. So the springs that came with these we're going to put in the parts bin, and we'll just give them to students in classes that need a spring. But these have the Springco hammer springs in them. The mag catches on all of them were sticking, so we did some tuning to those so they don't hang up anymore when you push them. They'll get hung up when they're coming back home. A few of the guns had headspace issues. All of these passed headspace. I don't know if you guys saw it when we were going over the pan view of everything, but there's a headspace gauge off to the right over here. I checked them with a 14646 gauge. They all passed now. A couple of them did have headspace issues with their original bolt carrier groups. Sons of Liberty donated complete bolt carrier groups because the factory ones were just, the best way I can describe them is they were trash. Everything about them were bad. Reached out to Ruger. Ruger didn't respond, so I'm not sure if they just weren't interested in helping or maybe the replacements were going to be the same, so they didn't do anything. I can only speculate. But we did a video separately on these. If you want to watch it, you can go ahead and look, and we'll put that up right after this video shoots, and there'll be 7 of these that you'll see a physical on, and they all did rather well. The feed ramps on these things were pretty rough. It was hard to see in the previous video, but we shined them up real nice. I can try to get a light in there, but they have a mirror finish now. These were some of the roughest ramps that I've ever worked on. I normally go through a process where I use some very fine stones, and then I gradually go up in grit. But those are the Cratex bits that I had to go through to do these 7 guns. This is what they look like when you start. Normally I can do 2 to 4 guns on 2 bits. And I had to go through all of those. Extremely rough ramps. So we got all the ramps polished up nice and clean. These are the bits of the springs that I clipped to make the front and rear takedown pins not so stiff. And when I do that, I also regrind the end. Not all of them need the same amount clipped off, but these took between 1 and 5 coils to get proper tension. You shouldn't have to use a hammer and punch to move these pins. What else did we have? We had canted front sight bases on both of the front sight base models. The front sight posts were also completely seized up. So we realigned those, reamed the pin holes for oversized taper pins and put oversized taper pins in. None of the guns had crush washers, and the muzzle devices were over torqued based on accepted standards. So crush washers, proper torque values on the muzzle devices. Castle nuts were loose. Those are all properly torqued and locked down and staked as we discussed. The barrel nuts were all extremely tight, but the ones that had the two-piece handguards, the front sight base models, super difficult to get apart, so much so that I actually wrecked one of them. You can see the tooth right there that got wrecked. So the one that I'm keeping, which is this one without the tape on it, this is the one that I had to replace. So you can see it has a standard delta ring assembly where the other designs have a thread on right here. So this is one we're keeping for our shop demo, but I had to replace this because I messed it up. I also had to replace one castle nut because when I was tightening it, I slipped. And this was usable, but I'm not putting a castle nut on a gun that has chunks missing out of it. Let me try to get it close to the bench. There we go. But chunks missing out of it. And if you didn't watch the Sons of Liberty video, we are using a new camera and audio equipment, so hopefully the audio is great. We're still learning the camera, so if things are out of focus or a little bit off, we do apologize, but we're learning new stuff, trying to make things better for all of you who watch our content. What else do we have to tweak? Forward assist, we're good. We put all new spiral pins in these guns for trigger guard, bolt catch. The roll pins for the ejector on the Sons of Liberty are the factory ones. We left those alone. We will send a new ejector roll pin with the gun in case anybody does want to change them out. You can see there were some scuff marks on them. We touched a lot of them up that were on there, and then we did a couple when we were taking the things apart. So the factory scuff marks have been removed using some aluminum black. Everything's torqued to proper value. And they've been test fired. So let's go over the pricing summary. So this is the whole point of these videos, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to get an idea of what you would get at your local gun store. You went in there and you saw this gun on the rack, you were interested in it. Retail, one of these guns are going to go for about $10.39. That's what Ruger lists the MSRP for. And then I shopped around and I found them as cheap as $600 shipped. So that can be a big price difference. But the concept behind the video is look at what you can get the gun for, and then look at the amount of parts that you will have to put into it. And this is what we had to put into each one. A hammer spring, a bolt carrier group, crush washer, a buffer, which is an H2, and a buffer spring. Now these two last parts are ones that I messed up, so I just listed them. But each gun required $284 in parts. So what I'm trying to get people to think through is, regardless of the skill level you have, they require at least roughly $300 in parts, and at a minimum, it's a $600 gun. So you're gonna pay $900 for one of these if you wanna get it to standard, not counting labor. Now, if you have the knowledge and skill, you can do what I did, but if you don't, you're gonna have to pay somebody. So what would that cost? If I were to ask around and had people that had the proper tools engaging, I would say to do this to these guns would run you at a minimum of $300 to do this work. So think about that. Let's say $600 for the gun, $300 for the parts, and $300 for labor. You're in this $1,200 on the low end. And if you're paying retail, you're in this thing for $1,600. So ask yourself, would you pay $1,600 for one of these? Some people would say yes because they like the brand. But the idea is we do other rifles. We want you to take a look at the MSRP of the gun or the gun price that you can get it for, and then look at the parts we're saying should be in the gun, and then consider the value of it. We also didn't list the spiral pins in here. The spiral pins would have added about another $6. So we're going to show you what's up next. We have 7 of these as well, and these will be the next series. Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 3s. We've already got them laser logoed with our logo on them. So if you're interested in one, you can go to our website. You can see if you're interested in one. If not, watch it for the content. Let's go to the back table and I'll show you the old parts we took out. These are all the old parts. The owners are getting these back. So the old hammer, trigger components, the springs, the old roll pins, the old buffer springs and buffers. There's Rebel. What's up, fat boy? Coming in here for some water. Run, fat boy, run. He's a jerk. Those are the old bolt carriers. We're going to keep these because we're going to keep showing students what we've found on these, and they can see them in person when they come to classes. These are the magazines that are going to ship with them, the chamber flags, and the hammer springs that came with the Sons of Liberty kits that we're just going to put in our parts bin and use them for students. But these are all the things that we pulled out. We're going to box them up. They'll be shipping out to their owners tomorrow. So part 4 is over. The next one is going to be Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 3s. As always, I hope you found our videos educational, and thanks for watching.